All right, football fans, buckle up because there's a storm brewing in Green Bay, and it's all centered around one of the most talked about players on the Packers roster. After weeks of speculation, trade rumors, and draft projections, the NFL draft has come and gone. And guess what? That player is still wearing green and gold, at least for now. While many thought the Packers would use this draft as the perfect opportunity to offload him and make a fresh start, the team threw everyone a curveball. Not only did they hold on to him, they didn't even bother selecting a quarterback until the 7th round. Yeah, you heard that right, 7th round. That's not a fluke. That's a statement. Now this decision, or perhaps the lack of one, has triggered a lot of discussion. Was it intentional? Was it just how the draft board fell? Did the Packers have their eye on someone who got snatched up right before their 3rd round pick? That part remains unclear. But what's becoming increasingly obvious is that the front office isn't in a rush to part ways with their star defensive back. Instead, there are whispers, and not just any whispers, serious talk suggesting that both sides might be working on something behind the scenes. Something that could keep him in Green Bay through the 2025 season. According to several sources close to the situation, negotiations between the Packers and the players' camp are ongoing. The idea? Finding a path forward that would allow him to stick around without the team absorbing the full weight of his current contract. One of the options on the table is a contract restructure, not a straight-up pay cut, but a smarter setup that could benefit both sides. We're talking about tying a chunk of his compensation to performance-based incentives. That means if he plays a significant portion of the games, hits certain performance targets, or gets selected to honors like the Pro Bowl or All-Pro teams, he'd have the opportunity to earn back a good portion of the money originally set for him in 2025. Now let's talk context, because this is where things get really interesting. Over the past 2 seasons, this player hasn't exactly been a regular on the field. Between nagging injuries and inconsistent availability, it's been hard for the team, or any potential trade partners, to justify paying him top-tier money. That's why, during the draft, no trade materialized. Teams don't want to inherit that kind of salary unless they're sure they're getting someone who can contribute on a consistent basis. From Green Bay's perspective, it makes no sense to eat that much cap space on a guy who's barely been able to suit up lately. And yet, releasing him outright also isn't the most appealing option, at least not before June 1st. You see, the financial structure of his contract changes depending on when a release or trade happens. If they cut ties before June, the team would take on about $18 million in dead money. That's a brutal hit to the cap. But if they wait until after June 1st, that figure drops significantly. They'd still take a hit, but the team would also save over $17 million in cap space. That's a huge difference, and one that could make all the difference in how this saga plays out. The other layer to this story is the overall makeup of the Packers' defense. There's no question that when this guy is on the field, he makes them better. No debate there. He's a shutdown cornerback, a game changer. The problem is he just hasn't been on the field enough. So now, Green Bay is stuck in this tricky spot. They want to keep the talent, but not at the price tag currently attached to him. That's where the restructure talk comes in. And from what we're hearing, there's real momentum building toward that kind of solution. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. None of this is finalized. The team hasn't confirmed that they're actively pushing for a salary reduction, and the players' camp has made it clear they believe he's worth every dollar of that contract. If, and this is the key part, he can stay healthy and play a full season. So now both sides are dancing around this potential compromise. The Packers want to lower his base salary. The player wants a shot to earn it all back with performance. The middle ground? Performance-based bonuses. These kinds of incentives are common in the league, especially for players who've had injury issues. They allow a team to hedge their risk while still giving the player a path to big earnings if they deliver. For someone in a situation, this might be the best way to stay in Green Bay and prove he can still play at an elite level. Of course, that all depends on whether the two sides can actually come to an agreement, and soon. Now let's zoom out and look at what this means for the roster. The Packers waited until the 7th round to draft a quarterback, which tells us they weren't panicking to bring in someone new under center. But that wasn't the only notable move. They also added Nate Hobbs this offseason, a versatile piece who can line up both inside as a nickel and outside as a boundary corner. Then you've got Carrington Valentine, a former seventh-rounder who flashed real potential last season. And let's not forget about Keyshawn Nixon, who's shown he's better suited on the outside than in the slot. So yes, there's talent in that secondary. There's versatility too, with guys like Kalen King and Javon Bullard who can play multiple spots. But here's the reality. When it comes to true boundary cornerbacks, that depth chart gets thin real quick. Without our star corner, it's Valentine, Nixon, and Hobbs trying to hold the line. And that's a big ask. They also drafted Michael Robinson and have Kamal Haddon in the mix, but none of those guys bring the proven shutdown pedigree that our guy does when he's healthy. That's why this situation is so delicate. Letting him go might offer cap relief, but it also leaves a glaring hole in the secondary. On the flip side, keeping him at his current number isn't financially responsible. So what do? You negotiate. You compromise. You find a structure that works for both parties, and that seems to be what's happening behind the scenes right now. No one's drawing a line in the sand just yet, and that alone is a good sign. Back to the contract specifics. If the team goes the route of a post-June 1st release or trade, they'd only take on about $7.5 million in dead cap, and they'd free up over $17 million. That's a much more manageable hit. But if a deal can be worked out before that becomes necessary, the team avoids weakening its defense, and the player gets a shot at redemption. It's the kind of outcome that, if pulled off, could end up being a win for both sides. And look, nobody's saying this guy doesn't deserve to be on the field. When he's out there, he's a force. It's just that the injury history can't be ignored. It's not personal, it's business. The league is a bottom-line world, and right now the bottom line is that he hasn't played enough to justify that massive cap hit. But if they can restructure the deal, align the incentives properly, and keep him healthy, the Packers could enter the 2025 season with one of the most dangerous secondaries in the league. Right now, it's a waiting game. Talks are ongoing. Optimism is cautiously growing. And if the buzz from this morning is any indication, we might be inching closer to. And as we continue following this unfolding situation, the stakes keep getting higher. Not just for the player, but for the entire direction of the Packers' defense heading into next season. Because let's be real, with this guy on the field and fully healthy, the Packers' secondary looks like a whole different animal. His presence alone changes the way opposing offenses call plays. Quarterbacks think twice before throwing to his side, and offensive coordinators have to get creative just to avoid him. You take that kind of weapon off the field, and suddenly your entire defensive scheme starts to feel a lot more vulnerable. But here's the catch. The team can't bank on potential anymore. The last 2 seasons have shown that availability is just as valuable as ability. He's missed more games than he's played, and for a team trying to build something sustainable, a true contender, you can't tie up that much cap space in a player who's not consistently suiting up. That's where the current front office strategy seems to be landing. They're not rushing to get rid of him, but they're not going to overpay either. They're being patient, calculated, and, frankly, smart about how to handle this. The idea of tying his salary to performance incentives is gaining traction not just because of his injury history, but because it sends a message to the locker room. It tells the rest of the roster that accountability matters, that every dollar counts, and that nobody is above the standard, not even a former All-Pro. And let's not forget, if this deal gets done the right way, it could serve as a blueprint for future negotiations with other players in similar situations. It's the kind of forward-thinking approach that sets a franchise up for long-term success. Meanwhile, the cornerback room is starting to take shape, but it still hinges on whether or not this player is part of it. Carrington Valentine showed some promise as a rookie, but it's asking a lot to expect him to be the number 1 guy in year 2. Keyshawn Nixon is better in spurts than as a full-time outside option. Nate Hobbs has versatility, sure, but he's also adjusting to a new system and new teammates. Without the star corner in the lineup, you're essentially relying on a committee approach, and that's rarely ideal when you're facing top-tier quarterbacks week after week. The addition of players like Michael Robinson and Kamal Haddon adds depth, but not security. These are developmental players. They might turn into reliable pieces down the line, but right now, they're question marks. That's why the front office and coaching staff are so invested in finding a solution with their star defender. Because if they manage to keep him at a cap-friendly number, the defense suddenly becomes not just solid, but elite. And let's not overlook the timing here. The draft is over. Free agency has cooled down. The options for replacing him externally are limited. There's no magic bullet waiting out there on the market. That gives the player some leverage, too. He knows that the team still needs him. But at the same time, he also knows the market wasn't exactly banging down the door to trade for him. Not with that salary and that recent injury history. So both sides are stuck in this delicate balance, understanding that working together might be the only path forward. The team, of course, could always wait until after June 1st, make a post-June move, and open up that $17 million in cap space. But then they'd also be gambling with their defense. Who steps up in his absence? Can the young guys rise to the occasion? Can the scheme survive without a shutdown presence on the outside? Those are risks the front office clearly wants to avoid, which is why the negotiations haven't stalled. If anything, they're intensifying. And here's the most telling sign that progress might be real. People inside the building aren't panicking. Usually, when a team knows it's going to lose a key player, you start seeing moves to fill the gap. A veteran signing here, a trade for depth there. But that hasn't happened. Instead, the vibe suggests that they believe something can be worked out. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. This whole situation could still go sideways. A trade could materialize late in the offseason. A release could happen if talks collapse. But right now, all signs point to both sides trying to find that sweet spot. A deal that keeps the player in Green Bay, saves the team money, and gives the defense the anchor it needs. And if they pull it off, the Packers might just be putting together one of the most underrated units in the league. Quietly building a defense that doesn't just compete, but dominates. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Green Bay Packers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. In a stunning turn of events, the Green Bay Packers have made a massive splash in the offseason by acquiring one of the NFL's premier wide receivers, Justin Jefferson. The move has sent shockwaves through the league as the star wideout, who has been a beacon of consistency and excellence with the Minnesota Vikings, now dons the green and gold of the Packers. For Green Bay, this acquisition is a statement of intent, signaling their commitment to contending for a Super Bowl in the near future. Jefferson, who has quickly risen to elite status since entering the league in 2020, is widely regarded as one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. His combination of speed, route running, and ability to make spectacular catches has made him a nightmare for opposing defenses. Over his first few seasons, Jefferson has broken numerous records and established himself as the cornerstone of the Vikings offense. His presence on the field has always been a game-changer, consistently making plays and being a reliable target no matter the situation. For the Packers, this move marks a pivotal shift in their offensive strategy. Green Bay, which has historically leaned on its strong quarterbacks and running game, now has a bona fide superstar at the wide receiver position. Jefferson's arrival provides a much-needed boost to the Packers' receiving core, which has been inconsistent in recent years. The Packers' offense, led by quarterback Jordan Love, will now have a dynamic playmaker who can stretch the field and make explosive plays, a critical component if they are to compete in a highly competitive NFC. The acquisition of Jefferson also signifies a new chapter for the Packers as they transition from the Aaron Rodgers era to a new era under Love. Jefferson's arrival is not only about filling a need at wide receiver. It's about creating a new identity for the team. With Jefferson, Love will have a go-to target who can consistently win one-on-one battles and provide a safety net in crucial moments. This partnership could be the key to unlocking the potential of Green Bay's offense in the coming seasons. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Green Bay Packers, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.